Oh, look out now. It's the Bourbon Banter podcast, the most honest and biggest podcast in all of bourbon. That's right, friends and neighbors. We got everything you need to drink curious right here. So sit back, grab a pour, and check your feelings at the door, because we're here to lay it down for you as only Bourbon and Banter can. We're rolling into 2022 already wishing for 2023. Not just because we're tired of this year already, but our stash of Little Debbie Christmas tree cakes is already depleted. We don't want to wait another year to restock. So if anybody wants to trade a case of Christmas tree cakes for some Eve's Blind selections, give us a call and $500 and we'll be sure to set you up with disappointment immediately. Anyway, let's get this show on the road. Here we go.
Bob, what the hell are we going to do about getting our stocks replenished? I mean, I don't think anybody's going to take you up on that blind offer.
I figured I'd put it out there, man, but if they're going to send us that and $500, if you've ever wondered what the price on disappointment is, that's it right there. Well, $500 in a case of Christmas tree cakes.
Well, there you go. Well, a very belated Happy New Year to you, sir. This is obviously the first time we're getting together to record the pod since the new year.
It is. We are already into 2022 and wishing it was 2023, I tell you.
Absolutely.
This has been a hell of a year already. I'm just like, okay. Even on New Year's Eve, I turned to my wife and said, I'm already ready for this year to be done.
Well, way to come in full of optimism. Holy shit.
Well, it's lived up to my optimism so far. Shit.
Yeah. Well, I mean, on my end, as you know, it's been a little tough. The first week was great, kicked off the first new year. And then about around the 7th or 8th, came down with a bad case of COVID for myself. And that was lovely. And then the rest of my family got it, and just in time for me to celebrate my 50th birthday. How's that for a special gift?
There you go, man. But I mean, you're here and you're doing better now, and just proof, folks, that got to be careful out there. Pops was running around and doing something that I'm not clever enough to think about bullshitting about right now. But
well, my exposure was actually very limited, so we're not even exactly sure where I picked it up. But it was clearly somewhere in passing. So, as Bob said, yep, be careful. But the good news is, he said, wear your mask, do what you need to do. Now, what was interesting is I actually did lose my sense of smell and taste for about 4 days, and that was weird. I mean, that was really bizarre. But fortunate to say that it came back pretty quickly. I'm not... I can smell and I can taste fine. I had a little trouble discerning some things, like when I really focus. So the craft shoot today might be a little off, but by and large, getting back to full speed with a little bit of a cough left. But other than that, I'm good to go.
Well, just going based on past craft shoots, that isn't necessarily a bad thing, so we'll see what happens.
May not be a reflection of my smelling and nosing skills, right?
That's correct. It could be that I think that I was seeing a report out of the New England Journal of Medicine that craft distilleries may be responsible for that aspect of the coronavirus. Who knows, taking away taste and smell after trying some of this shit.
It would be a boon to the industry, that's for sure. But hey, I'm excited. So hopefully in about another week, the rest of the family will be up to speed, and I'll actually get to officially celebrate my 50th birthday. So the good news for all of you listeners is there's still time to send in gifts.
That's right.
So, some cereal, some donuts, some cash, some Christmas cakes, anything in that general vicinity will be gladly accepted. And if you need an address, drop us a note at podcast@bourbonbanter.com.
And you get extra bonus points if you send in the vendor Christmas tree cakes. Not the little boxes you get at the store, but the vendor side, the larger ones, They make the tiny ones that you can buy at the grocery store. But then if you go to like Costco or say whatever, where you're going to buy the shit that sits out on the convenience store shelves, that's where you get like the triple size, which by now is probably only the original size of them because everything has gone down. But shit, go get the bigger Christmas tree cake. Send us it that way.
Oh, yeah. That's a whole separate episode where we could talk about the reduction in size of tasty treats out in the market. So maybe, hey, if enough people want to hear us rant about that, we could add that into the bullshit section, even though it has nothing to do with bourbon. That could be a lot of fun. But now that we get a new year kicked off, I think we need to get caught up on a few things, Bob. And I'd like to start first and foremost with a quick community update. It's a new year, right? And we finished last year with our first 350 plus people in our private Slack community, and that's going extremely well. Lots of people sharing their thoughts, their opinions, also bringing some great bourbon bullshit ideas to the table, which I'm terribly appreciative. But we are ready to start the next wave. So if you are interested in joining our private Slack Bourbon and Banter community, right? This is a place where we've banned crotch shots and thread shitting and all sorts of bad behaviors. If that's something you're looking to be part of, there's going to be a link in the blog post for this podcast. So if you're listening to this, head over to the website, find the post for this cast, and there will be a link in there that you can click on and fill out a form and submit your interest in becoming a part of the community.
It is a good time. But have thick skin. Better have thick skin, because you don't, if you're gonna come in with it, where it's truth. Just imagine bourbon bullshit in community form, and here you go.
Well, and I think that's an important thing, Bob. I mean, we are honest, we are straightforward, but we're not mean, right? We're not going to attack people. But once again, we're gonna pressure test when people say, "I really like this," and someone's going to ask you. Just be ready, because at the end of the day, we want everyone to drink curious, and that requires you to know what you like, why you like it, and why you don't like something, right? So if you can be part of our community and stand up to the group and have good, solid conversations, you're going to be well positioned to drink whatever the hell you want. Even if that is something that Bob, for example, wouldn't enjoy himself.
Correct. And if I wouldn't, I will tell you.
That's right. Well, speaking of how great the community is, it's time for the community thread of the month. And Bob, you pulled this one out. I think this is an excellent choice. This was a post where someone shared a recent advertisement, I think from Facebook, from Jefferson's bourbon. It was for their Oceans brand expression. And the image in the ad said, "Aged at the mercy of the sea," with the corresponding description of "darkened by pounding waves, caramelized by equatorial heat. Jefferson's Ocean, the gift for every adventurer." And the best response from one of our community members was, "If this was at the mercy of the sea, it would have fallen overboard."
Hey, there you go. There you go. I mean, you had that one, and then you had, somebody else say, "I just figure it's easier to add my own sea salt to bourbon. That way I can decide which sea I want in my bourbon to taste like. May even use Himalayan sea salt. Maybe I'll make it as Buddha's bourbon. One-of-a-kind flavor influenced by the essence of Tibetan plateau. That's how this works, correct? Or do I have to pull it in a hot air balloon and fly close to the mountains? As we know, adding flavoring, it's no longer legally bourbon." So that person just went all out on a Himalayan sea salt bourbon. So,
Himalayan salt is delicious. And the other one is Fleur de Sel salt is like the pinnacle salt. It actually comes in flakes. I think we could do something with that, but they are right. So I love the fact that they got their bourbon 101 down. Is we can't add something to bourbon and it stay bourbon. So we would actually just have to have it sit by it, right? And pass through the essence of and pick it up, much like Jefferson's. But then there was also the big debate on if, where do they actually store the barrels for Jefferson's, right? I mean, when they did their first voyage and maybe their second one, they originally had tied them around the mast, right on the top of the ship, right? But they got exposed to the weather and the elements in the sea air. But they also had problems with the barrels, right? The bands were rusting. They had to reband the barrels. So I think after that, they started putting them into Connex containers, big shipping containers. Now, most of those I imagine are put down below deck, but they could be on deck. But once you put them inside that metal container, I mean, as if it wasn't already a little suspect, I doubt you're picking up much of the sea air influence if you're protected by, a quarter inch of steel.
I mean, the only time I ever had it, I am not a fan. There's no secret about that, not a fan. I actually spit it out the first time that I had it, and because it just tasted like sea salt, like seawater. So it was horrible. And, that was the...
I think you might have gotten a counterfeit bottle there, Bob.
Counterfeit? Somebody's counterfeiting Jefferson's Ocean,
absolutely.
Really?
That stuff's getting expensive.
Yeah, uh-huh.
Okay, it's supposed to have a hint of sea air, not taste like seawater.
Well, I can see that the bullshit is getting deep early here. I'm glad I have my brown shoes on today.
Well, once again, if you like Jefferson's Ocean, and we know there's tons of people out there that do enjoy it, that's cool. If you enjoy paying the premium for the story, that's awesome as well. But these are the types of conversations and the fun that we have in the community. So if that's the kind of thing you're into, definitely check out the blog post and submit your registration form to become part of the group. Now, the other thing I wanted to give everybody a quick update, because we're going to be, I would have announced this earlier, but as I said earlier, a little bit of COVID set me back about 3 weeks. I'm super, super excited that we're making a key staffing change or announcement to Bourbon and Banter. As many of you guys who have been fans for a long time, as we started this almost 11 years ago with the website, the actual formation of Bourbon and Banter goes back further than that. And it was always a side project. And this past July, I actually stepped in 110%. It's now my full-time gig. Things are going great. Things are going wonderful. But anytime you want to continue growing and growth, you have to figure out, what can I do? Who can I bring in? How can I make this better than what I'm doing myself? And, we have a great community of blog contributors here with Bob and the podcast, Aaron being in charge of our cocktails, and 17 other team members who've been contributing content for years. And they're a very key part of the team. But it's time for us to kind of go to that next level. So I'm super pleased to announce that one of our multi-year contributors, Steve Coomes, is going to be assigned as the new editor of Bourbon and Banter. And he's going to be responsible for helping to take our editorial strategy and content to the next level, not only through news coverage and kind of filling the gap in what we see in the industry coverage, but as well as helping us to create new content ideas and approaches to getting this content out to people across the globe.
And Steve is a remarkably, remarkable writer and friend, but he's incredibly well respected across the industry as well. Because Steve, you will read his stuff in a variety of places, including ours. But we're thrilled to be able to bring him into this role, and we look forward to it. And Steve tolerates all of our bullshit, which is a good thing.
No, so. He's definitely a little bit more on the adult end of the spectrum for us, which keeps us in line. But, I met Steve originally. It's been probably 5 years ago. I went down on a media junket to be part of the Bourbon Classic. And part of that was some tours out to some distilleries, including Michter's. And Steve and I sat next to each other on the bus. We'd never met each other, and we got to talking and talked the whole way there and back and forth from all the distilleries. And even from that early day, it was very clear we had a lot of common opinions. We were really in sync. And we had talked at the time about there was a need for some dedicated bourbon publications. Bourbon Review was out, but we thought there was an opportunity for more. And then, wouldn't you know, within 3 weeks of us sitting on that bus, Bourbon Plus was launched. American Whiskey Magazine was announced shortly thereafter. And we're like, okay, well, someone else is coming. And well, here we are 5 years later. We've been continuing that conversation. That point forward, he became a contributor. So it's sort of like the culmination of a lot of ideas, a lot of conversations. So it's going to be really exciting to bring this to life now with Steve on board as the full-time editor for the site. And we'll have some other announcements coming out of this soon as well. But I think it's going to be great for everyone who likes what Bourbon Banter brings with our attitude and our approach. There's going to be more of it, and we can't wait to bring it to you. All right. So with that said, I think it's time we dive into the whiskey news. So, Bob, we all know that big brands can make some really stupid steps, right? And one of the big brands that always does stuff that we love to make fun of is Diageo, right? From the Orphan
Make fun of Diageo?
Just once in a while. It's been a while, actually.
Has it? Well, you don't really have to make fun of somebody who just continually puts themselves out there for it like that. I mean, everybody just knows. So.
Well, and let's be clear, we're making fun of them on the way they market their things, right? They make some great products. They've bottled some things that aren't so great, but they sure do market the hell out of them. And so that's where we kind of go. But this one is just a really weird business misstep. I'm not sure how this one happened, but down in Mexico, there is a famous actor, and I'm going to butcher this name, so I apologize, but I'm reading it as Gael Garcia. And evidently, Diageo put together a campaign in 2011 and 12, and in those ads, they used images of Garcia in their campaign. But what they didn't do was actually get his permission to use his image in these ad campaigns.
How do you do that? How do you use a celebrity's image, anybody's image, and you don't have a release to do that? I mean, I can't even begin to fathom how, especially a company that is as big and has as many resources as Diageo has, fails to do something like that.
Yeah, I mean, I've done marketing work for Diageo, and every little thing we had to do had to be approved by multiple people, no matter how small it was. So for a mistake of this magnitude to happen it's a mystery. Well, Garcia obviously didn't take this lightly, and so he sued, and it actually went to the Supreme Court, and they ruled that Diageo Mexico must compensate the actor for at least 40% of Johnny Walker's sales. 40%.
40% of the sales.
Yes.
And we don't know what that number is yet.
No. They haven't disclosed that, and they're working on the calculation, but 40%. Holy crap. I mean, that reminds me of the lawsuit with the Rolling Stones and the Verb, for Bittersweet Symphony so many years ago, which, has now been resolved. But, back then when the judge says all the money goes, 40%, that's a huge amount of money. I'm not sure what sales are.
And that's 40% of their revenue in Mexico, right?
Correct.
Not their worldwide revenue.
Right. My understanding is it is for Mexico. But even then, that's huge.
Well, yeah, no, absolutely. I want to know the number. I want to see how much this is going to cost them.
Right. So I'm just going to put out there to all the brands out there looking for big, bald, bearded, and beautiful men. Bob and I are all set for you to either infringe our copyrights or to officially engage us. And we will charge far less than 40% of the Johnny Walker sales in Mexico. Just saying. So we often talk about how great South Africa is with their liquor laws. And you might be shocked, but we're not going to rail on South Africa right now. Instead, we're going to turn our eyes to the wonderful country of Australia. That's right. Australia was reported as the drunkest country in 2020, according to some data that was pulled together because, well, this is what people do with data. They come up with these interesting details. According to the study, they drank more than people from other countries in 2020. In fact, Australians reported getting drunk 27 times in 2020, the most of any country in the survey and well above the global average of 15 times. Evidently, average respondents said they got drunk around 14.6 times. So the Australians clearly took...
How do you get drunk 0.6 times?
Well, that's a statistical rounding issue, okay? Don't get hung up with that. Of all the things...
So let's say 15 fucking times. We're 14.6. I've never been drunk a 0.6 time. If you're talking about alcohol volume in then point, 08, but shit, 14.6.
That's the issue you have with the study is the 0.6. All right, noted. But Australia, good for them. I mean, clearly, they had some of the world's most stringent lockdown procedures, right? So clearly this is how they dealt with it. So maybe Australia maybe South Africa was onto something, You lock people down and they're going to drink more, so we got to curb that drinking. I don't know. But it's glad they're known for something more than criminals at the moment. That's
there you go. It's I just have visions of Crocodile Dundee playing over in my head.
Drunk people with a knife. That's the next study coming out.
Oh, Jesus.
But I will use this as a call to arms to all my fellow Americans. Let's get on the leaderboard for 2022. Okay, so start now. We're only a month into the year. Plenty of time to catch up. All right.
Hey! I think our lawyers would have something to say about us trying to encourage people to go out and get drunk.
No,
just stay the fuck away from me, okay?
I want them to be responsible drunks. So drink and get drunk at home.
At home, that's
at
right.
Home, that's right.
Out of any earshot or line sight of me. I don't want to be around you drunk bastards.
Bob's a big enough drunk for himself. That's what he's trying to tell you.
Hey, we're professionals. We don't deal with that. We are professionals. We enjoy our beverage, and we don't get to that point.
Okay. All right. I don't know why he's winking at me, folks, but he is. In other news, a little bit closer to home, Columbus, Ohio has launched a distillery trail. And I know you're shocked, Bob, because you probably thought they already had one, right?
Well, the one thing I've always loved to do when I go to Columbus is leave. So, that's me, but I don't know if I've ever been in Columbus.
I was going to say that was my follow-up question was if you
through Columbus, but never in Columbus. Although I do have some friends in Columbus, and I know there are some good things happening there. But Columbus, Ohio distillery.
They've got the Short North Art Trail, and they've also got the Columbus Coffee Trail. So now they have the Columbus Distillery Trail. And this is a curated experience co-sponsored by Destination Grandview. And they've pulled together I think it's something roughly like about 7 or 8 distilleries on the trail as of today. Places like Middle West Spirits, Watershed Distillery, 451 Spirits, Noble Cut Distillery, High Bank Distillery, and a few others. And they've put together a website about it and a little bit of an app. So if you go and you hit all the distilleries, you get a nice t-shirt. If you hit just, I think 4 of them, you get some cocktail mixers or something. So I think it's kind of cool. You get something for just doing part of it, because, committing to everything can be a little bit daunting, but I have not been, so I don't want to comment. We're actually talking to them. Steve and I may actually go up there in the next 30 to 45 days and check it out. But I think it's kind of cool that they've put something together. I mean, Missouri has the Missouri Distillery Trail. And what I like about this is that the states are starting to work and get collaboration together, right? I think when they bring these efforts together for the consumer, it's going to make things better, and I hopefully get everyone to level the game up. Now, once again, this is not a comment on the quality of the distillate, whether you like it or not, but at least sort of organizing it and bringing education to people, which is a nice thing to do and help with the tourism, especially since we've had such a horrible tourism industry the past 2 years dealing with COVID. So I think this will be a nice addition, and I'm actually curious to check it out and see how it goes.
Yeah, I don't know anything really about Ohio distilling. I've got family in Ohio, and it's every time I go, it's just flat land everywhere you go in Ohio. But somebody's going to now, call us out and say, hey, he's wrong. He doesn't know what the hell he's talking about. But yeah, you're right about the tourism industry being hit, and, bars, restaurants, the hospitality industry has been just completely obliterated by this thing. So good for these folks that are standing up and putting this together. If you visit all 7, the shirt that you're going to get, it says the proof is in the proof. I don't quite know about the slogan there, but I don't, as a marketing guy, Pops, I don't know where that would have come from.
I think it means that the proof of the quality of the distilling is in the product itself, which is the proof.
Yeah, if you have to explain your slogan to me, then that's not you may want to that.
Well, we'll check it out, hopefully here in the next month or two, and let you guys know if it's worth a visit. But before then, if you find yourself up in that neck of the woods, definitely check it out and drop us a note at podcast@bourbonbanter.com.
And go check out Byron Stripling if he's playing anywhere. Tell him I sent you. And then duck, because he may throw something at you, but go check him out. Fantastic trumpet player and educator and singer. So, yeah, check him out.
This has been a non-paid endorsement for jazz. Well, speaking of bourbon trails, in Kentucky, there was a economic and fiscal impact study recently released, and it has got a lot of fascinating statistics in it about Kentucky. But basically, it's saying that $9 billion is being poured into the bluegrass economy every year, generating more than 22,500 jobs with roughly $1.23 billion in payroll. So obviously bourbon is big in Kentucky, no surprise there. But the governor, Andy Beshear, no wallflower, and definitely always looking for ways to promote himself, decided to put in this great quote in the press release. It says, "We all know that Kentucky crafts 95% of the world's bourbon and 100% of the bourbon worth drinking. But today's news proves that our signature spirit is so much more, and the growth is simply staggering." Well, if that's not a shot across the bow of every other distillery, not to mention MGP right across the border, I don't know what is. So I got to hand it to politicians for making statements like that, because, hey, he's got us talking about it. 95% is crafted in the great state of Kentucky. And I often joke in my tastings that 11 in 10 Kentuckians surveyed say that all the good stuff is made in Kentucky. So obviously the governor is one of those 11 out of 10 as well. But I'm going to be really curious to see how other states decide to respond to this, because they go in the press release furthermore saying how they've got all this infrastructure, and they kind of find it hard to believe that people wouldn't choose to open their distillery in Kentucky. Right? There's 2,200 distilleries in the country now. And I think it's kind of just interesting how they sort of diminish the reality of starting a business. But there are a lot of other details to note here. So there's more than, well, let's see here. The average salary apparently of a distillery worker is $101,567. Now, once again, I'm assuming they're going to be including some executive pay in there, because I doubt the guys rolling the barrels making that much, and not the gift shop workers. So one of those wonderful stats. It's numerically accurate, perhaps, but not really an indicator of the prosperity of the distillery workers. The distillers bought 17 million bushels of corn in 2020. 75% of that's from Kentucky. 10.3 million aging barrels of bourbon, the first time that's been over 10 million. And the number of barrels filled each year was up 435% since 1999, with filling a record 2.4 million barrels. And despite that, we still can't get most of the damn products from Buffalo Trace.
You were reading my mind. I was just about to say the exact same thing.
Yeah. But guess
435% increase, and we still can't get, a bunch of this shit.
And guess who's not part of the Kentucky Distillers Association, Bob?
Yeah. Go figure.
Right.
They're not a part of a lot of shit. They just kind of do their own fucking thing over.
They're like Fleetwood Mac. They just go their own way.
Yeah.
And we know how that worked out. But they're talking about creating 4,500 new jobs, 258 million in payroll, 20 millions in tax revenue. So a lot of great stuff. So I love seeing this stuff because it's nice to see the impact. And it's fantastic, and I hope it continues to rise. But I do sincerely hope that we figure out some of these allocation issues. And I also hope that some of the distillers realize that the product is starting. A lot of the products are starting to get into a price point where it's no longer attainable for people, whether they can actually find a bottle, but afford a bottle of some of the new and fun stuff. So I don't know how you solve for that, but that'd be something I'd love distillers to focus on in the years ahead.
You know how I solve for that? I go drink Wild Turkey 101.
Well,
Old Granddad.
That,
Four Roses.
Yes.
That's how I solve for that.
Yes, but how about a brand new product that's affordable, that's even tastier? I mean, people want to try new things. If you're into bourbon, you try new things. But when everything new is $150,
we're going to talk about that.
Oh, yes, we will.
We're going to talk about that. We got a news segment coming up at the end of this, folks. You thought bourbon bullshit was something. What happens when the bullshit is even stinkier than the regular bourbon bullshit? You just wait. We get to the end of this, but we got some words. Anyway, continue on.
That's right. No, that's right. I like to get you riled up, get you going. So let's talk about something a little bit more affordable. We're going to switch gears to some new whiskey releases that have crossed our desk. As you guys know, we get tons of press releases, so we don't feature everything, just the ones we kind of catch our attention. And the first up is Chattanooga Whiskey is introducing the second release in their new barrel finishing series. So they announced around January 21st a release of the Islay Scotch cask finish. So they're going to it's a limited edition, of course, but they're going to take their mash bills and they're going to finish it in casks that had Islay Scotch in it, right? So if you're a Scotch lover or you like that sort of peated and smoky flavor, this is probably going to be right up your alley. All right. So this is part of a release series that they're doing, but the whiskey itself is aged for over 4 years and then put into a 250 liter Islay Scotch hogshead for 3 months, bottled at 95 proof. And it's available for a budget friendly $49.99. And that's for a full 750 milliliter bottle. That's not that half bottle shit that some people pull.
Yeah, the folks from Chattanooga have been one of the. Now, here's a prime example for the governor of Kentucky of folks who are not in Kentucky but are doing some fantastic things and doing great bourbon. So,
amen to that.
You know me, I don't believe politicians. Most politicians anyway. But
a couple of years ago, when they released their cask strength high malt bourbon for the first time, to me it was one of the top contenders for whiskey of the year. Absolutely love it. In fact, we reached out to them because we wanted to do a single barrel this year, And unfortunately, I've got some news to share that people are no longer going to be able to pick single barrels from Chattanooga. They've updated their program because it's been so popular, and they're not that big, right? So they've got to manage that inventory. So what they're doing this year, instead of having people pick single barrels, they're going to actually take single barrels that they've picked, and they're going to be broadly distributed into retailers and restaurants as a mix pack of 4 different high malt bourbon recipes. Okay, each one of those is hand selected by their team, bottled and uncut at barrel strength. Okay, so instead of buying a single barrel, people will be able to go into select markets and buy different single barrels that were picked by the distillery team. And the hope is this makes them more widely available to people across the country. So disappointing for people who wanted to be involved in doing a pick like ourselves. Okay, but we can only whine so much before people tune us out. But it's great for everyone else who wants to experience different single barrels. Hopefully you'll be able to get your hands on one. And there's no report on what that's going to be priced as. So it's going to probably be more than the $49.99. But we'll give you an update as soon as we hear that. If you start seeing these in your market, drop us a line as well. We're eager to start getting some feedback from people in the market. Now, I still don't think it'd be incredibly
insane in terms of pricing compared to other barrel proofs.
I think it'll be $80 or less.
Probably something like that. Yeah, that's right. What I'm thinking.
So another one of the Bourbon and Banter favorites is Barrel Craft Spirits. We enjoy what the folks are doing over there. We did our Stellan pick this past year. It was fantastic. I actually am sipping on right now the bourbon and the rye from the Stellan Black series, which is the regular blends with some older reserve stuff added to it. And I'll be doing a review on those as soon as my taste buds are at 110%. But Barrel Craft Spirit announced their first new release of 2022 is going to be the Gray Label Seagrass release. So this is last year they had their Seagrass Rye, which released, and a lot of people loved it. It was a little polarizing. Bob didn't like it. I loved it.
I wasn't a fan.
Right? No, but it's part of the Gray series, which is their older age reserve stock series. So this is going to be 100% Canadian rye whiskey aged for 10 years and finished in Martinique rum, Madeira, and apricot brandy barrels. That's going to be bottled at a nice, strong 130.82 proof. And if the regular release was any sign, this is going to be absolutely delicious. Now, the bad news is the price. Because they're putting older products into this, it's going to be $250 a bottle. So it's going to be pretty pricey, which is unfortunate. But once again, these guys do a really good job of blending things. So once again, without having tasted it, I can't comment accurately, but I would suspect this is going to be a tried at a bar pour, unless you're just rolling in cash. And speaking of rolling in cash, if you are, once again, take us back to the top of the podcast. And with our offer, if you would like to use Bob and I in any marketing efforts, we are available and we are appropriately priced.
And the Gray Label stuff is at that $200 and up price right around there. So it does go along with that. Right.
But
too rich for me, boy, but
But you know what I like about Barrel and what they've done, okay? And is they started with Barrel Craft Spirits, right? And everything was right the $80 to $100 range, right? But they do a really good job. So instead of just buying MGP, they're taking MGP and other brands and they're creating something that in most cases, not every time per my palate, is greater than some of the parts, right? So $80, a little pricey for secondary source stuff, but they're doing something and trying to make it better than what you can get directly from the source. And I admire that. Then they came out with the Stellan line, right? Which was the same blending approach and vision, but at a lower price point. And they did a fantastic job. They knocked it out of the park with their bourbon. The rye was solid as well, but the bourbon I really fell in love with at the price point. Now they've got the Gray Label. What I like is they're doing something at different price points for everybody. And everything that they're doing is done well. Once again, you're not going to like everything, right? Because palates are different. But I like how they're trying to create something for everyone. And as long as they continue that approach, they're going to have a bright future. So I really hope they continue to do that and don't price themselves out of consideration. Because now somebody, no matter the price point, can enjoy something from that family of brands and have a nice experience. And when they have some money, they can upgrade. And I think that's the way it should be. So that's a little bit of the barrels that are the new releases, I should say, that have caught our attention as we head into the new year. There are going to be a lot more, I'm sure, as we come along. But for now, I'm going to turn it over to Bob, because Bob, during the Christmas holidays was doing a lot of background research, and he came up with something that really is dear to my heart. It's a new product announcement from, let's just say it's finger licking good.
Yeah, well, our super sleuths on the Bourbon and Banter investigative team have been scouring and working for me on getting all of the information to make sure that we were completely accurate on this one. And we bring you more news out of Frankfurt that Buffalo Trace is going to be partnering with Yum Brands. And there's the Yum Center, I think, down there in Louisville. So, but this is upcoming. This year is the 70th anniversary of Kentucky Fried Chicken. For those of you who aren't aware, Pops and I, of course, knew. We have it marked on our calendars. But Yum Brands is partnering with Buffalo Trace to release a special limited edition bottling of Kentucky straight bourbon named Kentucky Fried Bourbon. Yeah. That's right, ladies and gentlemen, Kentucky Fried Bourbon. Our sources tell us that the original idea behind this collaboration was to brand it as a special E.H. Taylor release. But instead of Colonel E.H. Taylor, would have been Colonel Harlan Sanders. But the brand team realized that the core audience for KFC branded bourbon would likely not have the access or the disposable income to purchase an E.H. Taylor limited edition.
See, that's what I'm talking about, right?
Yeah. See, right, exactly. So I mean, we couldn't afford to do it. So the plan was to scrap that in favor of a non-bottled and bond bourbon from Buffalo Trace's mash bill number 1. It's the same mash bill that as their namesake release, the Stag release, E.H. Taylor releases. So since it's not being released as part of the E.H. Taylor series, Buffalo Trace and Yum were able to design a unique bottle that is going to be modeled after the legendary red and white striped KFC chicken bucket. Okay, so that I can't wait to see this. Hopefully on the shelf. You still
good luck
with this kind of thing.
Yeah.
So the bottle is going to be a non-lead porcelain decanter bottle. It's going to feature a wraparound label with KFC's iconic red and white striping, along with the name Kentucky Fried Bourbon. Now, the bourbon is going to be non-age stated, but reports it's a 4 to 5 year old straight bourbon that goes through a unique filtering process before barreling. So in a nod to, and I don't think anything else at Buffalo Trace has done this, in a nod to the Lincoln County process, bourbon is passed through a specially crafted cheesecloth filter that is embedded with the Colonel's 11 secret herbs and spices, giving the whiskey a very strong herbal essence. It's said to pair well with the obvious, fried chicken, but also other Southern food staples like greens, pimento cheese, smothered pork chops, mac and cheese, cornbread, sweet potato pie, all those things that you love from the soul food table. It said it's going to pair well with this bourbon. Now, fat washing cocktails has been trendy for a number of years, but now, Pops, we're seeing more complex food filtering techniques being used on bourbon. Like we recently broke the story on Michter's Country Ham Stave aged bourbon. So, unfortunately, the Kentucky Fried Bourbon will not be available at KFC locations as they don't have liquor licenses that we're aware of, but it is going to be available exclusively in Kentucky at Kroger stores and Liquor Barn outlets initially. It's then going to be released in New York, Tennessee, Florida, California, and South Carolina.
Why South Carolina?
Why South Carolina? Well, let me tell you. So to launch the product, KFC is making an adjustment to their celebrity Colonel Sanders portrayals. And they have enlisted noted Weller 12 fan and South Carolina native Stephen Colbert to don the Colonel's trademark white suit for the ad campaign.
Nice.
So Colbert pushed for more involvement, but even he couldn't get Buffalo Trace's Harlan Wheatley to let go of additional Weller stocks to make the release of wheated bourbon. So even Colbert couldn't get more of it. So for those that may not remember, this isn't the first foray by Yum Brands into liquor that accompanies their products. They released that Taco Bell wine in Canada in the fall of 2020, if you all remember that. So I guess they're branching out, liquor and food. So I just can't wait to see a porcelain decanter Colonel Sanders chicken bucket bottle of bourbon.
Dude, I mean, if they had not done the wine collaboration a couple of years ago, I would have thought this was complete bullshit. But it makes so much sense tying it in to Kentucky and to bourbon with as hot as it is and the whole food and bourbon cooking thing. I mean, this is going to be cool. I mean, I have to tell you, Bob, when you first shared this with me, I immediately thought of the whiskey that we talked about that is the Thanksgiving whiskey that has the turkey in it.
Yeah, the one that's filtered through the Thanksgiving meal. Yeah.
And I have a sample of that, and I have to tell you, it's pretty unique and quite shocking at how well it turned out in terms of what they were trying to achieve. It's not disgusting at all. So this is going to be cool. I mean, we did a review. God, it's been years. We did a review where we paired Kentucky Fried Chicken, had a new sandwich. It's called the Zinger at the time.
I remember that.
Where we paired it with bourbon. You keep talking. Tell me a little bit more about this. I'm going to see if I can find out what the bourbon was that we
wound up. Well, I think the one that wound up, was it Ancient Age that wound up working well?
Might have
been.
Let me.
Might have been, but
going.
They were also, so this naturally, I'm sure, has gone through some iterations. I've heard some rumblings that, like the Michter's, where they aged it with the country ham staves, that they were thinking about aging it with fried chicken skins, but as a finishing technique, which may sound disgusting, but again, that fat. And this is the thing that Steve Coomes, our new editor, turned us all on to, is just combining the fat with the whiskey. It really does pair well. And fried chicken fat with whiskey is a beautiful thing. So, maybe that'll be something. Who knows what kind of things are going to pop up. I'm thinking like crackling cornbread, but using fried chicken skins and put a little bourbon in there with the cornbread and fried chicken skins and bourbon. And now I'm getting hungry, Pops. I'm really getting hungry.
Well, if we go back to the original article, Jim Beam wound up being the winner, just the regular white label. But it did surface a little fact that I forgot, is that Maker's Mark, the distillery founder's son, was the first employee of Harlan Sanders. He drove him around.
That's right. Bill Samuels
drove him around as he was selling his recipe.
Down there,
yeah,
and he led the behind the scenes tour, and we got on it, the one that Bill led, and it was fantastic because he started talking about driving Colonel Sanders around with his pressure cooker selling his chicken.
Yeah,
and so there is very much a bourbon tie-in with KFC.
Well, clearly, obviously, the tie's not strong enough for this to happen just to go have changed, but that would have been cool. And if they had done it, they would have gotten the weeded recipe, right? That Colbert wanted. I mean, that's the irony of it, right? So, no, I mean, I mean, who wouldn't want to have the decanter, right? So I'll tell you what, if any of you guys get this, right, or able to get this in your local market, I will pay a premium for the decanter because, it's a funny story. Years ago, my parents, we were getting ready for a garage sale. This is back when I was in high school. And one of the things they found in a box was a old bust of Harlan Sanders. That was a bank. It was plastic, and it was a bank that I guess KFC used to give away as a promotional item. And we had this guy call up and said, hey, he wanted to come out to see everything we had for sale the night before because we said we had a lot of my Star Wars action figures. So the guy came out and he bought some stuff, and then he saw the bust of Colonel Sanders, and he offered my mom $25 for it. And my mother decided that since he was so excited about it, it must be worth a lot more. And he tried to tell her that it wasn't. He just thought it was so cool, right? Such this weird thing. And she never did it. So now I own it, and it's actually in my office up on a shelf. I'll have to post a picture of it. And I absolutely love it because my mother thought for sure she could retire off of it. And it's such a weird thing. So if I could get that along with this decanter, that would be absolutely fantastic. I would love it.
Tell you, man. That's well, maybe it's worth something now. Go on eBay, see how many are sold in the last, couple months. Maybe it's worth something, but so be on the lookout, folks.
That's right.
You've got Michter's Country Ham Bourbon and KFC Bourbon coming out this year. They're perfect for the dinner table.
Yeah, and I expect we're going to see a lot more coverage on the food stuff because, as we said, with Steve Coomes taking over as editor, Steve has a huge restaurant background and he's a big foodie, and he actually does this amazing country ham and bourbon tasting. He does it a lot with Michter's, but he does it with other brands. And I tell you what, you wouldn't necessarily think the two go together in the way that they do. It's absolutely amazing. So I think we're on the front end of a trend here once again, Bob. Leave it to the big guys to find the food trends. That's for sure.
You're damn right. You're damn right.
All right. Well, all of that has really made me thirsty. So I think it's time for us to dive into the craft shoot. All right, folks, it is time for the craft shoot, the highly entertaining, always tear-inducing, quick review segment that Bourbon and Banter has become famous for. In this, we take a sample of whiskey that has been blindly bottled by my lovely wife, and Bob and I are going to try and give you our unfettered opinions without knowing what it is that we're drinking. Only after we've commented, we will unveil what the whiskey is. And like I said, many distilleries don't want to be featured, but the few that get our nod of approval, well, it is pure gold. So that said, let's go and dive in, Bob. And what are your first thoughts?
Well, it's lighter in color, and it's got some somewhat decent legs on it, but it smells really. It's got that vintage craft. I don't know, it's kind of ridiculous, but that classic craft, ethanol. Yeah, I'm sorry, Bob. Y'all can't see him. He's cracking up at the whole vintage craft thing. It's got that, that ethanol, but then maybe there's a little bit of black licorice behind there, some floral notes.
All right, I agree. I get some young wood on the nose. So once again, a young whiskey appears to be in the glass. But I get a little bit of orange, right? A little bit of floral notes, almost like watered down caramel. So let's go ahead and give it a taste.
Yeah, on the palate, I was expecting it to be just really harsh, but it's not. It's got a little bit more of what's on the nose, a little bit of that floral, maybe a light hint of orange.
Mm-hmm.
A little bit of spice. The finish is short to medium. It's not. I feel like we should. It's not terrible. It's better than a lot of the things that I've had in the craft shoot. I will give you that.
It's funny, as I went to taste it, I looked at the glass again. I've got actually really some nice, thick, viscous legs on my glass. So while it smelled thin and on the palate, it's not a heavy flavor. It's got a good mouthfeel to it. It's got sort of toffee, light. It almost feels a little watered down. So this is definitely a lower proof whiskey. There's no doubt about it. But I agree with you. If it gets some of that spice in there, that's kind of nice. The young wood is not nearly as overpowering on the palate as I would have expected it to be. So there's a good balance there. And once again, just a hint of orange and maybe vanilla cream as we head into the finish.
Yeah, I would be interested to taste this. Now, I'm assuming it's young, but it can't be terribly young, or else it would be a lot more astringent. So I'm wondering if this is maybe about 3 to 4 years old.
Okay.
Maybe that's a wild hair's guess there.
All right. Well, let's go ahead and unveil what it is. All right. So this is the Dark Door Washington Straight Bourbon Whiskey. All right.
As in Washington State Straight?
Washington State Straight.
Okay.
It's made by Wildwood Spirits. Distilled, aged, and bottled by Wildwood Spirits in, what is this? Bodhill, Washington. It's 90 proof, so lower proof. We got that one straight on. Give me a second here. I'm looking up the details, and I'm getting the bottle off the shelf now that I know what it is. This is distilled from Washington corn and wheat, so it's a wheated bourbon. According to their website, it's about 20% white wheat, I think. And this was barreled in December of 18 and bottled in February of 21. So this is just a little over 2 years old. That's surprising, is it not?
Yeah, it is.
Okay, let me see what else I can dig up real quick about these guys. So apparently, they are using barrels from Missouri, but from a company that primarily makes them for wine. So it's not independent stave. And they say, aged for 2 years in new high char Missouri barrels. They say it has flavors of toffee, caramel, orange flowers, and vanilla. Is what they do. And it retails for about, All right. If you buy this in state, it's going to cost you about $90 shipping it in state. If you pick it up at the store, it's $63. And if you are out of state like we are, it's $80. That makes no sense, but you can buy it online. So proceed at your own, the economies of shipping versus everything else. But so about $60 we'll call it $60, right? So it's a little more expensive than the standard crafts at around $50. And it's young. Now, I'll give them props. I mean, it's better than most 2-year-old.
It's pretty decent. I'd be interested to taste it in about 3 years when it's got about 5 years of age on it.
Hey, great start, guys. Now, this place, from what I'm seeing here, is really, really tiny. They don't put out a ton of whiskey.
Which is why it's $90 a bottle to ship it. So.
Right, exactly. So, but a great start. So, once again, if you're looking for something in the craft range you want to try out, at 90 proof, the unfortunate thing is, I think this would get eaten alive in a cocktail. So you wouldn't want to do this. So you're really going to want to drink this neat. And if you like that lighter flavor in your bourbon, you don't like the big, strong, bold flavors, then this is a good option to give it a try. Otherwise, if I was writing this as a formal review on the website, I put this as a bar try. On our bottle bar or bust, I would definitely put this as a bar try. So
I would agree with you on that.
All right. So, well, hey guys, Wildwood Spirits, congratulations. You got a bar recommendation on the craft shoot. If you have a recommendation for us to add into the rotation for the craft shoot, please drop us an email at podcast@bourbonbanter.com. Even better, ask us what our mailing address is and send us a sample. All right, folks, it's time. You know what it is. It's time for Bourbon Bullshit. It's been 2 full months before we've given you guys a truly epic bourbon bullshit segment, and I think we're going to deliver today in spades. We're going to kick things off with something that's been bothering me for a while, Bob. You know, we've been writing and talking about bourbon and running Bourbon and Banter now for 12 plus years almost, and you know, it can get a little tiring. You can get a little burnt out sometime. And it's only exacerbated by the fact that there are influencers and YouTubers and people everywhere now who are bourbon and whiskey experts, right? I'm sure you've stumbled across a few of these, right?
Just a few.
Right.
Of course, are we in the same boat?
Well, I mean,
we have to ask ourselves that question. Are we one of the same?
And I do. And, you know, and I get worn out. So I don't know if this is bullshit, but they're just everywhere, right? Everybody who's got a mic, got a video camera. And, you know, this is how we started. So once again, it's not a critique or people wanting to get industry, but as I watch the content, I just really wonder, does it provide value? And so I want to put a heartfelt question out to the listeners before we get into the true, deep, smelly, warm bullshit that will warm people's hearts. I do have a question. What would you like to see from Bourbon and Banter? Whether it's from this podcast, whether from the website, whether from social channels, what would you like to see that would set us apart? What aren't you getting anywhere else? What would you trust us to deliver? You know, Steve's coming on as our new editor. He's going to be putting together a new content strategy. This is real feedback. So please, I hope a lot of you will drop us a note at podcast@bourbonbanter.com and let us know what it is you would like to see from Bourbon and Banter as a media company. We're going to read this comment. We're going to make things happen. We get a lot of ideas of our own, but we're really, really curious. How are we going to set ourselves apart from every Tom, Dick, and Harry out there with an opinion and an asshole?
You know, one of the things, and we've talked about this before, is, you know, with so many people providing a voice, you know, an expert, quote unquote, voice, one of the things that has bothered us, and I know it's bothered you and me and the whole team, Pops, is people doing this who are believed to be experts actually knowing what they're talking about. Just basic facts, basic awareness of the category, of the industry, of things that are happening. And I mean, within the last few months, I remember coming across something, or there was a live cast on one of the social media panels, and they were talking about weeded bourbons, and I mentioned Wyoming. Oh, well, I haven't heard that, or I didn't know it was weeded. And I'm like, it's just simple stuff that they've been out there for years. Yep. And there's all these various things that people who you would think are experts would know this stuff. So, and that leads into what you were wanting to talk about a little bit. It's just people putting out shit that just don't know what the hell they're talking about. It's getting really fucking irritating.
Right. And it confuses people, and it makes it hard to figure out what you should follow. So, we are about education. That is a key part of what we do through our content, through our in-person and virtual tastings. We do a lot of it, but we're also entertaining, right? So we know how to tell jokes. We know how to have fun with ourselves. And I think that's key. And I think that's important. So in that vein, what would people like to see from us? But Bob, to put kind of a finer point on what you're talking about, which is trusted sources or questionable sources putting out bogus information. We talked about this a few weeks ago or a few podcasts ago about publications who were writing articles that were just flat out wrong or misleading. And one came through the community this week from Gear Patrol. GearPatrol.com is a well-known publisher and website and tons of content. And I only wish I could be making the money that they're making, right? But they put out an article titled 5 Bourbon Makers to Know Before They Go Mainstream. With the subtitle of New Year, New Bourbon. Here's a who's who of distilleries you should know about before they take off. And this is by Susanna Skiver Barton. I don't know Susanna. I don't know what she's written before. I don't know anything about her. But as I look at this article, in the 5 distilleries that we need to know before they take off, she has included such tiny, tiny brands as George Dickel.
The unheard of George Dickel.
George Dickel, the second only to MGP for the place where everybody buys their frickin' whiskey. Okay, how the hell did this make it through any sense of it, editorial control? I'm sorry, this is a mistake that just kills her credibility from the start. George Dickel is huge. I mean, it's huge. And to say that they're a distillery you need to know before they take off is such utter bullshit.
Because they just put out that George Dickel bourbon, Pops. It hasn't even been out for a year.
She says the distillery has been on a tear, releasing a slew of new whiskeys that have met with near universal enthusiasm. The shockingly affordable, always well-aged, bottled and bond 15-year-old single barrel, 8-year-old bourbon. Yes, that's different from the Tennessee whiskey and the ever-evolving Cascade Moon series. Holy shit. Okay.
Good Lord.
Good Lord. Now, she does include great distillers like Frey Ranch, right? They're in there. And that's absolutely one you need to know. Wilderness Trail. I would argue that upon people who are into bourbon, though, Wilderness Trail is already taken off, right? But for people not familiar with bourbon, I'll give her a pass on that one. Green River Distilling, which, used to be called OZ Tyler, right? Some good things are starting to come out of there since they're no longer putting it through that hyper aging process and whatnot. So I get that as well. But then along with Dickel, they put in Lux Row, and a relative newcomer in production terms, because the distillery opened 4 years ago. But, she does talk about the roots are older and what now. And she talks about some of the new stuff coming forward. Here's the thing is, we're not drinking the new stuff. So she is
not drinking anything that they've made yet.
Right. So she does give a nod to that. It's coming up and it's going to be there. But it's not. It's Heaven Hill juice. It's Barton juice. It's MGP juice. So I don't know if there was paid placement going on with this or what was happening, but if she couldn't find 5 totally up and coming distilleries that weren't part of mega brands, like Lux Row and Dickel, this is what we're talking about. This is a publication that has millions of viewers and are now going to be chasing these things, thinking this is what great bourbon is. I don't know. It pisses me off. It annoys me because it's sloppy. And I want to see a change. So hopefully we're going to help add to that change, and up the ante a little bit. And I want our listeners and our readers to hold us accountable. So that's where that feedback chain is very, very important. So that being said, that's kind of what got me hot and bothered, Bob. But I know you've got something you want to kind of get off your chest here, and I brought it to everybody's attention. But I'm going to give you the pleasure of introducing not only this bullshit topic, but the fact that it's our first in a very, very special version of bullshit, if you will.
That's right, folks. That's right. We're going to, what happens when you have the biggest piles of bourbon bullshit that just they can't be fit into the category of regular bourbon bullshit. They defy the standard we typically have for bourbon bullshit, which you all know from listening, that really has to be saying something. But this one absolutely does. We're going to call this the Bourbon Outhouse.
Woo!
Now with the Bourbon Outhouse,
that's some stinky shit
right,
there,
Bob.
Some stinky shit.
It's some stinky shit. It's some stinky shit. So Pops put this out there, and I don't know. I might be a little bit too harsh.
You want me to give the facts, and then I'll let you jump in.
Why don't you start us off there? Because I might just get a little bit too worked up.
Okay. So I got a release the other day about a new project from Marianne Eves. For those of you familiar with Marianne, she has been the industry darling, quote unquote, the first female master distiller in Kentucky history, which let's just
stop right there.
No.
Let's just stop right there. God damn it. All right. You got to stop fucking saying that. She's not. Pam Heilman was. It's not fucking Marianne Eves. I don't give a shit. She's not the first female master distiller since Prohibition. Pam was. Continue.
All right. So Marianne left Brown-Forman, went to Castle and Key, was in a position to create some amazing things, and then she left before any of her products reached maturity. She decided to hit the road with her partner, who runs a circus, and along the way, Marianne released her Eves Blind tasting series of products where she would send out kits that had products that were non-labeled, which I love the idea of blind tasting, black Glencairn glasses so you couldn't see it. And we've talked about that before, so I'm not going to rehash that for right now. But she has just recently come out that she is releasing the actual whiskeys that she featured in the blind kits. All right. So it's a portfolio or series portfolio, if you will, that you can purchase these whiskeys, full bottles, 750 mils from her website. And she features the different distillery. There's 8 expressions, and they are all cast strength, which I love. But here's where we get into the really serious bullshit. They range from a price of $150. No, they're all around $150 or so. Now these
all $150 for a 750.
So these are coming from distilleries such as Oregon Spirits, Distillery 291, Stumpy Spirits Distillery, Treaty Oak Distillery, Watershed Distillery, Journeyman, Kings County. Now, some people love these places, some people don't. That's not the point. The point is that she is charging $150 for a single barrel. I'm assuming they're single barrels. They're cast strength from these distilleries. And these whiskeys, by and large, are going to be not very old, not very well distributed, and very few of these are going to be the types of whiskeys that you would even consider spending $100 on. Those are the facts.
Think about that.
Those are the facts.
$150 for that stuff, which we've featured some of that on the craft shoot. I know Treaty Oak was on the craft shoot, and we couldn't get through it. It failed the Texas test. And they only have a young whiskey that is their own distillate. Everything else is sourced. I've had the stuff from Kings County. You know, we're not cutting on the distilleries that are making this stuff, and we know the folks from Stumpy's. You know what they're doing. They've been very experimental, and everything is grained to glass, and they're doing a lot. What we're saying is that, like, for example, Stumpy's happens to be within, less than an hour from where Pops and I are. You can buy a bottle of their standard release is less than $40, and you're charging $150 for a cask strength, probably less than 4 years old. $150. $150.
Are you fucking kidding me?
I can't. This is when we say bourbon bullshit, the bullshit outhouse or the bourbon outhouse. It's like we don't even know where to begin. $150. We tried some one of these distilleries. I don't want to, I don't want to bash the distilleries themselves, but one of these, Pops, you and I tasted a bunch of stuff from them when we were doing our anniversary trip with a friend, and we couldn't drink any of it. It was horrible, absolutely terrible. I mean, I think we spit it out. And you're charging $150 for a 750.
Well, I'll tell you right now, I'm not going to say the brand. I've gone to one of the brand's websites, and they're selling some of their special releases, which are barrel strength, for around $100 or so, which, having had their products, is steep compared to what I can get for $100 elsewhere. But once again, it's craft distillery trying to make a buck, limited edition. They have diehard fans, whatever. But she's taking a bottle that the own distillery is marking up to $100, and she's adding $50 on it. And once again, downstream economics, I get it. But here's the problem, folks. And this is why I've never pursued the concept of buying whiskey from someone and selling it under the Bourbon and Banter brand, unless I create something that's significantly better, a la Barrel Craft Spirits, right? What they're doing is she's slapping a premium to a whiskey because it's passing through her. I just don't get it. And here's the thing. The people who are buying into this are the quote unquote uneducated whiskey consumer. And what this does is it sets a new bar. It recalibrates the system. And this makes it harder and harder for people who enjoy whiskey and like good whiskey, because it's a cascading domino effect. Is this starts getting people saying, oh, well, that's what I should be paying. And they shouldn't. And once again, I'm not trying to take money out of anybody's pockets, but let's get real about the value, right? If I can go out and buy Wild Turkey 101 for $19 a bottle, okay, which is a great, fantastic whiskey, but I have to pay $150 for a cask strength whiskey, so maybe 20, 30 proof points more, that is not going to be anywhere close to flavor profile. What does that say? How does that condition people? And I find it just terribly disappointing. Hence the bullshit label.
And you want to talk about small, micro distilleries or smaller distilleries or craft distilleries that you're getting from. There are craft distilleries all over the country that are selling barrel strength spirits for under $100 of theirs, that are older than this stuff is, that are cheaper, that are better. And so you're paying, like Pop said, you're paying that premium for something that's not nearly as good. And you pay $150 for this stuff and you taste it, and the reaction you have is pretty much what we're thinking, because we know that we've tasted a lot of this stuff. It's going to leave a horrible taste in your mouth, and it actually is detrimental to what your outlook on that craft whiskey is going to be moving forward, because you spent $150 for a premium in a black box from the second master distiller in Kentucky.
I can tell you right now, I mean, we did that trip out during Bourbon Heritage Month to KO Distilling in Virginia, and, they're selling their cask strength products online for like $65. And, that's a lot of money. It is, but it's a product that I have no problem recommending. It's different. It's unique. Even the stuff they source from MGP tastes different than everybody else's, right? But it's not $150. Holy shit. I'm sorry. I don't get it. I mean, once again, if you can make 1 + 1 greater than 2, then charge more all day, right? If you're adding value, a new label, your endorsement is not adding value. I'm sorry. It's just not. That's why I have such a problem with celebrity bourbons, right? Until a celebrity brings something to market that's truly unique and worth the amount of money behind it, it's nothing but a cash grab. Nothing but a cash grab. So, I mean, once again, not trying to take from anybody making a living, but, let's find a way to add value, and not just pass the downstream economics of like, I got to keep marketing it up just to make money. But if I get the same product elsewhere, I mean, MGP is a great example, Bob. I mean, look at so many people that resell MGP product as single barrels. Stellum is one, right? We did a private pick of Stellum, and it wasn't a blend. It was just an MGP 5-year-old barrel, right? Retail $54.99. There's plenty of other people who pick MGP single barrel 5-year-old whiskey and charge a hell of a lot more, right? There's no reason. There's no reason. So,
and think about what's priced at $150. Yeah, it's craft, so it's gonna be more expensive, but you're talking about stuff that is north of, if you win a bottle of something allocated in a lottery, it's going to be less than $150. You're not going to pay $150 if you win the, now we're talking about larger stuff, but like the Jack Daniel's Coy Hill release, which is phenomenal. You're going to pay $75 for that bottle.
mm-hmm.
Go out, if you had $150 to spend in a liquor store, would you go out and buy one of these bottles? Or would you buy 3 Russell's Reserve single barrels?
Exactly. And that's the thing. Once again, it's we're educated. A lot of our listeners and readers are very well educated. And this is one of the reasons why, as we enter 2022, bringing in Steve and some other stuff we got planned, we really want to try to get the word out to people, right? Gear Patrol are reaching millions of people who are not whiskey bourbon aficionados. And this is their first exposure. And it's screwing everything up. It's throwing everything up. When GQ puts out that Jefferson's Oceans is the best bourbon you should try this year, that is a win for Jefferson's, and that's great for Trey. He's a good guy. But you know what? If that's where you stop, you're missing so much. So what we have to figure out, and we really, really want your feedback, is how do we help break through and give a voice? And one of the things that I'm very interested in now that I'm fortunate enough to do this full time is it, reviews just don't seem to be enough, right? And as you drink bourbon, as you're listening to this podcast and having a laugh and enjoying us kind of do our thing, what is it that gets you out of your chair? What is it that gets you excited? Is it just trying a new bourbon, or is it an experience, right? We're very much interested in the whole concept of experiences, which can transcend the value of just the sip of a whiskey, right? So let us know what it is you think you need, because, if what you need is $150 bottle of bourbon, then maybe I need to be writing about gin, for God's sakes. But
no, you don't need to be writing about gin. No.
But I'm hoping people stand up and say, "You're right. Pops, you're absolutely right. God damn it. This is what we want more of. Let us help you drive it." That's what I'm looking for, folks. So this is your chance. Stand up. What is it that you want? And how can you help us, teach people to drink curious and not to fall victim to these one-off articles that are misleading and really set the wrong expectation of what good bourbon and whiskey needs to cost.
Drink curious, but you can also drink smart.
That's right.
We're trying to help people drink smart.
Right.
Trying to let folks know, we'll pull back the curtain on the wizard and show you all the bullshit that's happening behind the curtain.
That's right.
Because we don't want you to walk into the store and stand there looking at the whole thing. It's like, oh, there's the, Diageo product that we've heard everything about. Oh, and it's a special thing in a special bottle, and let's spend $90 on that fucking
Well, our goal for 2022 should be two things. Help you avoid being a tater, right?
I told you we got to find a different word for that.
I know, but it's still relevant. And the other thing is, the other thing I'm going to tell people that I'm going to be railing on this year is put down the phone, put a drink in your hand, and have a fucking conversation with somebody. Right. So anyway, that's a lot of soapbox. Bob and I have got a lot of really stinky bullshit to wash off ourselves today. So we hopefully didn't drag you down, but this is the issue we get into, and it gets tiring. Right. And I've seen multiple people who are running bourbon websites and organizations lamenting how tired they are, just kind of slogging through the year of bourbon bullshit, for lack of a better word. Right. So let's use 22 as a way to step up above and beyond that. Your voice matters. So drop your thoughts, your feelings, your comments, podcast@bourbonbanter.com, and we will take them all to heart. That said, folks, this was our 22nd episode, and we really appreciate you for sitting down, giving us some time, and listening to what we have to say. Hopefully you've been entertained and educated as well. And of course, we hope that you will share with your friends and family this wonderful podcast and get them to subscribe to us, because the more people we reach, the less we're going to have to complain about. So on behalf of everyone at Bourbon and Banter, thanks again. And remember, folks, if you're going to drink
curious.
Well, what's your preference?
Bourbon, if you got it.
Bourbon from Kentucky.
I should certainly fucking hope so.